Hi everyone! In this video, I wanted to chat a bit more about how I read when I'm depressed. Now, I have been diagnosed with major depressive disorder for the past 4 years, and the way I manage my depression, of course, has changed during that time period, and it often changes depending on where my depression is at in a given day. However, reading has been a really useful and joyful tool in which I can draw upon to help manage my depression. So I thought I might chat a bit about that today in case it might be useful to anyone out there. So if this is something you're curious about or interested in, keep watching. So when it comes to my depression, I usually don't know what triggers it, which is a common experience for a lot of people. And I draw upon a lot of tools to try to manage it from day to day. Some days my depression, it's not an issue at all. I can move throughout my day-to-day with minimal management or at least minimal active management. Whereas other days I really feel that I might be in a depressive down or going into a depressive spiral. There are times when I'm going through a depressive spell and I really can't do anything to get out of it except know that I just need some time to pass. So I just need to maintain a sort of equilibrium to just get through that time, and then things will eventually get better. But that's just for me personally these days. Everyone's depression looks a bit different, so please don't take my experience as a catch-all or representative for what other people might experience with depression. But I wanted to explain how I'm experiencing depression recently because I think that plays into strategies that I find successful for me, and I'll make sure to bring that up as we go on in this video. So my first strategy is to couple listening to an audiobook with a distracting activity. Now, for me, distraction can be super key, especially if I'm going through a depressive spell where nothing I'm doing seems to work, and it seems that I just need to get through this period of time, and I know it'll just get better. I have some spells like that where no matter what I actively do, nothing is making it better. So the strategy is just to kind of maintain where you're at without going down and just get through this period of time. So listening to an audiobook while doing a distracting activity really helps me personally. So what this looks like for me is typically curling under my weighted blanket, putting on my noise-canceling headphones, turning on an audiobook, and playing a game like Candy Crush where I really don't need to think about the game, but it's a good distraction for me. This is honestly my go-to strategy when I'm in quite a down. It helps me pass the time, do something to occupy my mind. But I also feel this little hint of productivity because I feel like, oh, hey, I'm reading this book, hopefully learning something. But more so, I do just genuinely enjoy reading regardless of the format. So being able to consume an audiobook while doing kind of a mindless activity like playing Candy Crush, it makes me feel slightly better in that moment. My second strategy is to find my go-to depression genres. Now, I read widely, but when I'm in a depressive spell, I usually reach for low-stakes fantasy. That has been my go-to genre. Sometimes I can read the ebook or physical book, but oftentimes I'm listening to the audiobook and just passing the time that way. I've recently added a new go-to genre for when I'm depressed, and that's romance. It's not so much about love that's appealing, it's about the predictable structure. Most romance and romance novels have a set and predictable structure that I find quite comforting because I don't have to think as much. And that's not to say romance novels are not smart or insightful. They absolutely can be, and I've read many that are. I just really appreciate the predictability of the structure, which makes it a far more enjoyable read when I'm depressed. Now, even though I don't know what triggers my depression, I know that there are certain tropes or themes that I don't want to read when I'm depressed because it could worsen my depressive state. So I think it's quite helpful to peruse trigger warnings on Storygraph to see if a book that I might be on the fence about, if that's an appropriate book at that time for me. Now, I have friends who also have depression, and they've enjoyed reading nonfiction when they're in their depressive spells, as well as rereading books that they've enjoyed before because they know what to expect and it's a source of comfort for them. One thing I'm trying to do for myself is to populate a personal depression TBR. I tried to populate this TBR so when I am depressed, I don't have to think about what to read too much. I can just go to that list. Now, when it comes to curating that personal depression TBR for myself, I tend to go for plot-driven books. I'm looking for works that have easy diction, not overly complicated syntax, where they just really have a story and I just want to keep turning the page to figure out what happens next. It's a great distraction for me personally. When I'm depressed, I do not want overly complex books, but that doesn't mean that I think that they're lesser books. I just feel that they're a bit more straightforward and I can comprehend and understand what's going on, so it's an easier distraction for my brain at that time. I've enjoyed less complex books that were also smart, funny, and witty, and just so needed when I was in a depressive down. I also tend to gravitate to shorter ebooks than physical books when I'm depressed. And that's mainly because it just feels less daunting. Reading a physical book or an ebook when I'm depressed is a bit more taxing than listening to an audiobook. However, I do enjoy that process of reading a physical book or ebook, so I just tend to gravitate to shorter ones because they feel less daunting. I can start a book and not feel like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna finish this, I have hundreds of pages to go. And also that sense of completion can feel good in certain moments. I'm not trying to complete a book to check a certain box or to feel productive per se, but I do enjoy reading and there is a sense of joy and I just feel good when I can finish a book, especially when I'm depressed. So to make that a little easier for myself, at least when it comes to page number, I tend to gravitate to shorter books. Now, there are moments when I'm depressed where I really want to read, whether it's reading a physical book or an ebook or listen to a book, and I just can't. It is just not working. But I find I enjoy building my TBR. So even though I don't want to read, I want to go shopping, but I also don't want to spend money and accumulate more stuff. So I just build my TBR by perusing book reviews online and adding books to my TBR that I think might be interesting. And I find it to be a really relaxing and joyful activity for myself. So I count this as part of my depression reading strategy because it is contributing to my reading, and that even if I'm not in a place to read a certain book in a moment, I have found it and will hopefully read it sometime down the line. This also plays into my last strategy, and that's watching booktube. Booktube has been such a source of comfort, especially when I'm going through depressive spells. Turning on a video, it doesn't feel as daunting as watching a TV show. It's not as stimulating as that, and I mean that in the best possible way. It's very low-key, relaxing, distracting in the best way possible. I feel like sometimes I'm listening to a good friend. I also feel that I'm learning things. I feel that I can add to that TBR that I love to just add and add to. And I just really appreciate booktube for that and so many other reasons. So if I could provide that comfort for someone, that's amazing. I'll link some of my other videos at the end of this video. But I am curious if you have depression or experience some type of neurodiversity or any other physical or mental condition that might make your day-to-day a little bit more challenging at certain points, and reading has been a tool to help with that. Let me know, and if there are things that you do that I haven't mentioned that might be helpful, also please let me know. So that's all for today's video. I hope it was useful to at least one person, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.